As we all know, life is hard. Hardly a day goes by when we aren't bombarded with the regular stresses of life such as work, marriage, family, and finances. Add to that the more catastrophic situations like the death of a loved one or a terminal illness, and it's no wonder we yearn for a mindless escape from the realities of life. One such escape is pornography, which is an especially intense struggle for men. Having an interest in porn is actually a pretty human response. It just means the viewer has a hardwired sex drive or interest in sex. However, the negative side of this human response is that looking at porn can turn into a routine. Then, the viewer can become dependent on that routine for an escape from reality. And the cycle continues until the viewer is watching videos that they would have previously been disgusted or horrified by, but they can't seem to stop. Said otherwise, pornography physically changes and rewires the pathways in the brain so that it becomes like any other addiction or harmful behavior, which offers a promise of pleasure and relief from the negative emotions people don't want to cope with, albeit temporary. Because our brains don't like negative emotions, stress, anger, hurt, loneliness, and the like, we naturally seek things that give us pleasure and make us feel happy rather than rousing feelings of discomfort or pain. So it makes sense that when watching porn, the brain is flooded with pleasure chemicals like dopamine, which momentarily block out negative emotions. Likewise, dopamine, testosterone, norepinephrine, oxytocin, and serotonin flood our brains, and we feel good for a while. But then shame and fear return, and it is not long before we want another escape. This is why pornography hooks men in, keeping them coming back for more and thwarting their best intentions to stay away from it. Basically, then, the main reason why men can't stop watching porn is that it's addictive. There are, however, two other reasons for men's struggle with pornography. The second reason is that men isolate themselves. It is not easy for people to admit they have a secret struggle, and any such admittance is more an issue for men than for women, who are generally more guarded than women in their emotions and struggles. Consequently, men remain in isolation. Bearing feelings of shame you simply cannot tell anyone because you might lose your job, your friendships, your wife, and your family. People will drop dead in shock because everyone thinks you have it all together, and so that pressure keeps the truth buried deep in your darkest places. You feel trapped because you are in a prison of your own making. Sadly, for men remaining in isolation, it makes it seem impossible for them to stop doing pornography and recover from their addiction. Because recovery demands confession, disclosure, coming clean, and genuine repentance, it's hard for men to step up and ask for help. So rather than admit their struggle, they live in denial and minimize their actions by telling themselves they know enough to be able to stop, and if they just try hard enough they can quit. From the many marriages and families that have been destroyed by pornography, we know this is not the case. The third reason is that men don't take their porn addiction seriously. As with any sin or struggle, it's easy to tell ourselves that everybody is doing it and it's not that big of a deal. Men create illusions in their heads that porn is not real and therefore poses no real threat to their lives or that of their families. However, the sad reality is that porn use is destroying families and marriages at an alarming rate. While these three reasons certainly account for men's inability to stop watching porn, it does not mitigate their responsibility to seek help to recover from their addiction. The first step in their recovery is to admit that their porn addiction is real, that it poses a significant threat to their marriages and families, and that it therefore must be taken seriously. Only then will men cease to live in isolation and the prison they've created for themselves and gain freedom from their shame and addiction.